Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137. Okay, here is your forecast for Friday, January 26th and Saturday, January 27th. Friday, mostly in the clouds under mostly cloudy skies with freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Additional snow accumulations of 1 to 3 inches. Possible ice accumulations from freezing rain of a trace to a tenth of an inch. High will be around 30 degrees with winds southwest shifting west at 15 to 30 miles per hour, increasing to 25 to 40 miles per hour with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. The wind chill will be rising to 10 to 20 above. Friday night, in the clouds with snow transitioning to snow showers, additional snow accumulations of a trace to 2 inches. With a low in the lower 20s. Winds will be west at 25 to 40 miles per hour, decreasing to 10 to 25 miles per hour. The wind chill falling to 0 to 10 above. And Saturday, in the clouds with snow likely early, tapering to snow showers during the afternoon. Additional snow accumulations of a trace to 2 inches. With a high in the lower 20s. Winds will be southwest at 10 to 25 miles per hour, switching to the west at 20 to 35 midday, and switching to the northwest and increasing to 25 to 40 miles per hour late. And the wind chill will be 5 below to 5 above. So have a great weekend, everybody, and crush some peaks.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers Studio in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
All right, Stomp, episode 137. You ready to go?
Let's go. Cranking them out.
All right, cranking them out. I was just doing some research on the AMC huts. I'm going to be staying over at a hut.
Oh, winter?
Yeah, I'm going to do a Zealand stay. If you want to join me, I'll send you all the details. But yeah, I'm going to I changed my mind about doing the Zebon Traverse. I'm going to do it overnight.
Okay, when are you thinking?
I don't know. I got to figure it out. Probably sometime in February, second half of February, although February is very, very short month.
Now what made you choose Zealand over, say, Carter or Lonesome Lake?
Well, because I need to finish my 4,000 footer list for the winter. So all I have left is just like I've got Hale, and then I've got the Zealands and the Bond. So originally I was like, well, I'll just do a super traverse and hit Hale and then Zealand and then do the Bonds in one day. And I got a couple of friends that want to do it with me, but I was thinking, like, when we went out to Owl's Head, I was like, well, this is a long day. I think my friends were all sort of thinking the same thing, and they were like, hey, we could stay at the AMC hut and break it up a little bit. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you updated.
Okay, cool.
I'll keep you updated, but...
Keep me up to date. Yep.
Yeah. I'll give a review.
Good.
I've never done the AMC huts, so I've done, the Randolph Mountain. I've done Grey Knob and Crag and those ones, but not the AMC, so it should be good.
Gotcha. Are you planning on doing illicit drugs and getting on top of the roof?
I'm getting on the roof. I'm going to drop acid and get on the roof naked and scream at people.
I'm definitely going then. I'll be there. I got to see this.
Oh my God. I would have loved to have seen that. We always joke whenever we travel, we're at the airport, we're always on the lookout. Like, my phone is ready to go. I'm like, well, I want one of those like viral moments where someone goes crazy and I'm the one that tapes it. And like, but it never happens. Everybody's normal.
But that one was notorious. Like, everybody talks about that one.
Oh, my favorite story. The naked acid tripping hiker.
Are you ready for Slasher's Gear Review?
So, Stomp, I got a couple of gear updates here. So my daughter's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he got me these hand warmers. They're electric hand warmers.
Okay.
So see these things? They look like little like computer mouses, but they're smaller. And
I see. I gotcha.
They've got 3 levels. So I just turned one on. See that little red light right there?
Got it. That is pretty small.
Yep. And then you can turn it up to like 3 red lights.
So that's directly connected to the... Oh, those are hand warmers themselves. I see.
These are hand warmers themselves. So essentially, like you plug it into a USB, and then it charges. And supposedly it does like 8 or 12 hours or something like that. Like, I got it on the highest level, and immediately it's just hot.
That
immediately,
would be
like almost to the point where I can't even hold it.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, so quick startup as opposed to the typical chemical hand warmers.
Exactly. So I mean, they're not light. They're pretty heavy. I don't know, like this is probably about a pound or so. I'll have to weigh them on my little scale. Maybe a little less than a pound, but
that's really interesting.
But I'm thinking like, throw this in with my phone and keep it going, or have it available in case you need a quick hit with your hands. Because I mean, there's certainly plenty of times where I've had my hands have gotten super cold and it's taken a while to warm up.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting, and it lasts about the same time as the chemicals.
Yeah, the chemicals. So it's they're not light for sure, but it's. I thought it was interesting, and I was like, I appreciated the gift, so I'm going to use them.
Yeah, that's clever. And what kind of port? It's only good for what? An Apple, or do they have interchangeable connectors?
No, it's not even. It's not an Apple. It's like a standard
USB?
It's like a standard USB. So it comes with the power cord, and you just have to get like you do need one of these like bricks to plug it in.
Gotcha.
But you can plug it into a computer too.
Okay.
And I don't know how long it takes to charge, but they came pretty well charged. So we're trying.
Very cool.
And then the other thing, I want to give the listeners a heads up on a piece of gear that our friend Jakester sent me over. So there's this company that they are called, let me just see here. We don't have any affiliation with them or anything like that. They're not advertisers, but it's called Norhex Gear. And it looks like they sell, it's pretty cool. It's like Portland, Oregon, and they sell gear for inhumane terrain. So they have like these like canyon rope bags. They have otter pocket chest packs. They have like a canyon pack that looks like it's made out of the same material as like Hyperlight Mountain. And they have this thing called the Scooty Booty 2.0.
Scooty Booty. Okay, what is this? A butt sledding device?
It's a butt sledding device, so it's like it's sort of like a climber's harness. So it's a pair of shorts that sort of wrap around your thighs and your waist, and you tie it around, and it's made of this material that it's the alpine version of our Scooty Booty, and it clips around the waist and legs, and it'll smooth out glissades while protecting your climbing pants. So it's faster to transition than with rain pants, and you don't have to waste garbage bags. So they said it's extremely durable, vinyl-coated PVC construction. And it takes some serious abuse. 6 ounces.
Yeah, that's
and
not bad.
It comes in pink and black, it looks like.
Wow.
Oh, no, it actually comes in all kinds of different colors. So it's called Scooty Booty 2.0.
Huh. Love it.
And I don't know why whenever I say it, I have to say Scooty Booty. Instead of saying Scooty Booty, I say Scooty Booty.
Scooty Booty. So,
yes.
All right, I got to look a little closer at this here for 2 seconds. Huh. Okay, it's all good. That's really clever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so that's the gear stuff. Electric hand
cool.
warmers and the Scooty Booty. So welcome to episode 137 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week we are joined by KERRY UHLENDORF, who is the owner of Sherpa Ant, an online retailer that offers a variety of creative Northeast Mountain-inspired illustrations, cards, apparels, and gifts. So Stomp's got a couple of products from Sherpa Ant and loves it. So he recommended we talk to her. So she's great. So Sherpa Ant's mission is to help outdoor enthusiasts pursue and share their passions while giving back to the community. So in addition to her work at Sherpa Ant, she's also a prolific hiker, having grown up in and around the Northeast. So we'll talk to her about some of her favorite areas in the White Mountains. She's also completed the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. So we'll ask her to give a little bit of insight about what's going, a little bit of inside the mind of a thru hiker. We've got the thru hiker classes that are heading out soon enough. So we'll talk to her a little bit about that. And then on this episode, we'll also discuss the recent hiker fatality along the Pemi Loop route. There's an attempt to change the name of Mount Washington that's been denied. Plus, we've got search and rescue news with a couple of local stories. 3 hikers got in trouble in Mount Monadnock, and then we had a group of skiers get lost out of bounds in Killington. So plenty to cover today. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
Let's get started. We're going to get started by going into our friend, the Hiking Buddy spot here.
This is Ben Pease from Hiking Buddies. We are a 501c3 nonprofit committed to reducing avoidable tragedies through education, impactful projects, and fostering a community of support. You can find out more at hikingbuddies.org. We wanted to say thank you to those who have supported our mission, and most importantly, say thanks to those who speak up, who ask questions, and who are willing to provide guidance and assistance on the trails when needed. You embody what it means to be a hiking buddy. And now, for all my newer hikers out there, here's this episode's Hiking Buddies Quick Tip.
It's imperative to always check the weather the day before and on the morning of your hike to be aware of any changes or storm systems that may have moved in. The weather can and will change in an instant. Always be prepared.
Slasher's hiking topic of the week.
And we're back, Stomp.
Hey, another great tip from the HBs.
That's right. So, all right, Stomp. So we're gonna take a somber note on the episode right now. You prepared?
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this isn't going to be easy. So we're going to talk about Christopher Roma. Was a local hiker. He was a guide in the White Mountains, and unfortunately, he died while hiking on Tuesday into Wednesday last week. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty extended search and rescue situation. So we want to talk through the details of the case, and then we'll talk a little bit about this. It's tough to make sense out of these things. This is an interesting one from the perspective that, it's a very experienced, well knowledgeable hiker that unfortunately succumbed to the hike. So just to get into the details here, Stomp. Christopher Roma is the gentleman that we're talking about. So around at 10:20 p.m. on Tuesday, January 16th, New Hampshire Fish and Game conservation officers were made aware of a hiker in distress near Mount Bond in Lincoln.
Yep.
Concerned acquaintances had contacted New Hampshire 911 after speaking with the hiker by cell phone. A solo male hiker was thought to be in the area of Mount Bond, and that he might be moving towards Bond Cliff. Eventually, the hiker made contact with New Hampshire 911, and coordinates were obtained that placed the hiker between Mount Bond and Mount Guyot. Before the call was lost, the hiker stated he was very cold. The weather forecast for the area was for heavy winds, temperatures in the single digits, and snow.
Well, and I would add to that, the wind chill was unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's a tricky area, so you've got, I think about this area and I'm like, all right, well, Bond to Bond Cliff, yeah, there's a little bit of cover as you come down, but then, you're pretty well exposed. Mm-hmm. The section between West Bond up to Bond is pretty well covered, and then,
sure.
As you get that section on I don't know if that continues to be the Twinway, or you go past the spur trail down to Guyot campsite out to Mount Guyot. That's about a mile there. So then you're talking really exposed. So that's the South Twin over to Guyot is really the area that's got a lot of exposure as you head over to Bond. But
sure.
But anyway, so a rescue effort commenced, and the rescuers. So we're talking about 10:30 at night. Friends called, then Christopher called. They were able to mobilize a rescue operation involving Fish and Game, Pemi Valley Search and Rescue, and Mountain Rescue. They all met at Lincoln Woods, and by 2 a.m. on January 17th, so we're on to the next day. We're in a Wednesday early morning. The first rescue was started in, and the rescue effort was slowed as the responders had to trudge through waist-deep snow. So if they're coming in from Lincoln Woods, I'm assuming they probably got some sort of vehicle to assist them to get out to at least the wilderness area, or maybe a little bit farther. Yeah. And then they've got to make their way up. I'm assuming they went up through Bond Cliff and then made their way that way. My guess is that some people maybe started coming in from Zealand as well. Doesn't say in the news reports. Unfortunately, the waist-deep snow and the rescuers being exposed above tree line with heavy winds and blowing snow, it was quickly realized that the progress was going to be slow, so they made contact with New Hampshire Army National Guard to attempt a helicopter extraction of the hiker. The rest of this I'm paraphrasing from the news reports, but essentially throughout the day, the rescue teams attempted to locate Christopher. Efforts by the New Hampshire Army National Guard for helicopter extractions were made difficult because of low-level clouds. Ultimately, a team of rescuers were able to locate Christopher at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, but sadly, he was deceased. So essentially, you're talking from 10 o'clock until 5 o'clock the next day, you're talking about 20 hours or so, maybe 21 hours. And due to the conditions after they did find him and the time of the day and the daunting distance of a carryout, a decision was made to wait until the following day for a window of weather that would allow for a helicopter extraction early on Thursday morning. So from what's reported, it looks like the helicopter crew was able to, they were able to get down there on Thursday, land and bring Chris back to his family, but they did have to deal with high winds before settling down. So even Thursday, it was difficult weather conditions in the morning. So
Yeah.
Sad story, Stomp. I figured we could talk about what we know, what we don't know here, because...
Yeah. Let's talk about the terrain. I think we can go back to that safely. We want to be really respectful here. This is the weekend of his celebration of life. As many people know, there's a fundraiser that's ongoing, and he leaves behind a young one. So it's a delicate discussion, but I think we can do it some justice here. But that area is really pretty incredible in terms of the weather it receives, just in general, Mike. Every time I've been through the Guyot section, where it connects from the tent site to the junction to Zealand and off to the Twinway, it's always getting just blasted by wind. It's a large, open, flat, plateau-ish area almost, so you can imagine what it would have been like on this day with the snow and the wind and whatnot. So,
South Twin to Bondcliff is a 4-mile section. I think it's about a mile or so from South Twin to get over to Guyot, and then another mile to get to Bondcliff, and then another mile to get to Mount Bond, and then another mile to get down to Bondcliff. So it seems like not that much of a distance, but it really is a number of areas where you're completely exposed. And I would assume that, when wind's coming in, I was up there last winter, and we were on South Twin, and we talked to a guy that came up from Zealand, and he was cutting over to South Twin, and you could see, like he even said, he's like, trail's just blowing in right behind you, and it wasn't that bad of a day, but the wind was enough, and he was like, you can't follow your tracks back because the wind is just covering them up immediately. So that's essentially what you're dealing with. So if he made his way to Mount Bond, and he started to head down to Bondcliff, and that's where he started not feeling great. Yeah. And he's trying to backtrack, and he's trying to figure out, like, do I bail out and go to Guyot campsite, or am I trying to get back into the Twinway and get down to Zealand hut? We don't know. But, I mean, that's assuming what happened. And then once you get past that little area of where Guyot campsite and West Bond is, you're back into that exposed area. So if he was trying to get back into that area by Guyot, it's just daunting in those conditions.
It's an interesting place. I always found it very confusing, even in good weather. I've been there several times, so I know the basic layout now, but if you are going to this area, you really need to get a firm understanding of how the junctions work, where they are, because it's a somewhat confusing area, and it's not evident where you need to go at times, especially if you're socked in or in low visibility in general.
Yeah, and I think the Twinway cuts off right before you get to Guyot shelter, but it's like you're right, it's not obvious. Like there's it's sort of like where the Jewel Trail and the Great Gulf Trail and that area, like it's just confusing a little bit. Like there's...
Well, it's a hard right angle.
There's rock cairns. Yeah. Exactly. It's like there's rock cairns, and then it's not obvious all the time. And I can imagine like it's an exposed area, so if the wind's whipping, then you're not necessarily going to be able to see that well.
Yeah. Now, going back to what you had mentioned about being out there exposed for any length of time, I think that's a nice area to talk about being prepared for the weight. Making sure you have everything with you that you need to manage in those kinds of low temperature, full condition circumstances. It's super important.
Yeah, and it's tough. We don't know what he did or didn't have for gear. He might have had all the gear he needed, and it's just, there's things you can't control for. But ultimately, like if you look at this situation, you've got, a call that comes in at 10 o'clock on Tuesday night. You've got the, rescue team is out there, but they were able to locate him at 5 o'clock. So you're talking 20 hours. I always say, like, okay, well, you need enough gear where you can hunker down for 12 hours for a rescue team to come. 12 hours, depending on where you're going, like if you're going to be out in the Pemi wilderness, like it may be better to say, I need enough gear to sort of hunker down for 24 hours. And I think what you need to be able to do in that situation is, first, you have to have the gear. Second of all, if you've got snowshoes, you sort of pat down your area. You find an area that, is a little bit sheltered from the wind. You sort of pat down your area with your snowshoes so you've got a nice flat ground. Make sure you've got some cover, and then from there you got your sleeping pad that you lay down. Then you'll get your bivvy. Ideally, you could even put your sleeping pad inside your bivvy. and then you've got a sleeping bag as well. And then hopefully, if you've got hand warmers or you've got hot liquids or you've got anything like that, it's essentially like those are the things that you need in this situation to hunker down, to wait it out for a rescue. And again, we don't know what he did or didn't have, and we're not judging.
This is not meant to be speculation. I think we've tried to just veer towards education in general over the last few years, and regardless of what his situation was, I think it's just appropriate to talk about these basic safety things again and reinforce them. Not knowing what happened to him, nobody knows. Certainly not us anyway.
So. But that's sort of the mantra that you need to look at is you have to say, like, okay, if I'm going to be out there, I need enough. I have to be able to sort of wait it out and survive, because it can take a long time to get somebody out there. And, a couple of other pieces of information we do have. So Chris is an experienced hiker. So this is different than, the situation we had with some previous hikers where it was really an issue of they probably didn't know any better than and they didn't sort of have that voice in their head around like, okay, this is where things could go difficult. Chris had done the Triple Crown, so he's done all the long distance through hiking. He's done a solo Deritissima, which is basically hiking all of the 4,000 footers continuously, and he did it in 10 days. He's completed the Northeast 8, which is a series of ultra hiking trails, which include the Mahoosic Traverse, the Pemi Loop, the Presidential Traverse. So Triple Crowner. He worked as a local guide in and around the White Mountains. So by any measure, his hiking background and experience was significant. Probably got more miles than both of us combined, Stomp.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So he was experienced. He was seasoned.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and it's a good reminder that, these things can happen. Things can go sideways, even to the strongest hikers. And, the other tidbit on this is, so the news reports did indicate that he had set out with 2 other hikers to attempt a winter Pemi Loop. I think that's pretty solid that was the route that he was taking. I'm assuming they came in and they were doing it clockwise, and he came in from, Osseo and came over Franconia Ridge. I mean, that section from North Lafayette down into Garfield and back up to Garfield has to be brutal. I'm assuming that, they worked their butts off to get through there. And then at some point they made a decision. Some of the members of the crew decided they were going to head out, and this hiker decided to push on solo. No details on the background there, but unfortunately they there are a number of bailout spots, but I think it does get tricky once you get up to South Twin. You can bail out. Essentially, Guyor River's a good bailout section there, but once you get up to South Twin, it gets difficult because you've got a long way out, no matter what you do. So if you bail out down into North Twin, if you bail out into Zealand, if you just try to get down into Guyot campground,
there's not
a lot of, it's a long hike.
Yeah, 4+ any direction, for sure.
Yeah, so... I mean, we're here again, we're trying to process a tragedy. We're trying to judge what went wrong without being judgmental. I hear about these things and I think about these things, Stomp, and I try to assure myself, okay, this couldn't happen to us, but you never know. It can happen to anybody. And, you try to understand these sort of small decisions that might have been made. But it's tough to know. No one's going to know because they weren't with him. And, sometimes, the mountains just have their way of, could be that no matter how prepared you were, those conditions just were so unique to that area that it's just not survivable.
Right. Just anecdotally, I'm amazed at how many people knew of Chris throughout the community. Even coworkers that I guide with on the snowmobiles, we're best buds. Literally every aspect of my life locally here, I've met somebody that knows him or is very, very close to him.
Yeah. So our thoughts and prayers are with the family. There is a GoFundMe account that has been, we've shared it across our socials, and I think that, he's got a young child that he left behind. So if you can find it in your heart to give a donation, I think that would be cool. And, I'm sure that there's a lot more analysis that people want to get into on this. I don't know how beneficial that is at this point. I think ultimately, our our advice when it comes to safe hiking, especially in the winter, is pretty consistent, and it's keeping the amount of gear that you possibly can keep to wait out for a rescue safely and relatively comfortable. You're never going to be super comfortable, but just have that gear with you. And even then, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in life. The mountains don't care about how well prepared you are, how not prepared you are. Like, they're going to do their thing, and unfortunately, these things do happen.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
but more power to you. He was a goal getter, goal crusher, fastest known time crusher, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is people need to understand. Like, so, we talk about safety, but also the other piece of this is that there's a lot of people that are out there and they're doing amazing things, and they're doing these ultras, and they're, that drive to go out there is something that's needed. There's a balance in things. Like, there's a balance in everything, and you do need these ultra folks to be out there achieving new goals to help inspire people. So, and he certainly did that. I mean, just reading about like the Northeast 8 and the Diratissima and all that he's accomplished, like he lived a life.
No doubt about it. Yeah, world class athlete.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe we'll talk about this again, Stomp, but I definitely got a number of people that reached out and were asking us, like, are we going to address it? And I think it's good to talk about it. And I think the takeaway again is sort of, it's that 20-hour period where, you've got to hopefully have everything that you need to have with you to hunker down.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe we'll come back to it some other time, but
yep. So
rest in peace, Chris, and I'm planning on going to that event if you're around, Mike. If not, that's fine. A lot of people are going, so I think it'd be nice to support the community. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like, it's like you said, it's just a small world. Everybody knows everyone, and like since we started doing this podcast, like, it's really hit home, like how small of a network it is. Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
All right, Stomp. So moving on, the Board of Geographic Names has denied a request to change Mount Washington's name to
Agiocochook.
What?
You have to re-listen to our episode on Algonquin and whatnot.
I know. I remember talking about it. So Agiocochook.
I think it's Agiocochook.
Agiocochook. Okay.
Agiocochook.
Okay. So I'm going to do this again. Board of Geographic Names has denied a request to change Mount Washington's name to Agiocochook.
Perfect.
Probably not, but whatever. All right. So then other people will argue that, like, the phrasing of this should be changed the name back to. So there's a debate. There's a little bit of back and forth online about, like, okay, people were saying, like, look, the name was originally Agiocochook, and it was then renamed Mount Washington. So history's complicated, and just to start off with, so people are aware, there's a part of Mount Washington that is officially named in the Bureau of the Geographic Names database, that is Agiocochook Crag, and it's a lower section. Matter of fact, I hung out here and had lunch here one time, and it's a pretty cool area. It's located between the Auto Road and Nelson Crag Trail. So when you get, that section, Stomp, where you take that, you basically take a hard, like, 90-degree turn off of the road that travels along the Great Gulf, and you head up to that flat section.
Yes. Yeah.
So at the end of the hill and at the very beginning of that flattish section, if you keep going straight, there's Nelson Crag Trail, which is essentially like a flat trail. So if you go to the left of that, there's like a small crag or a summit. It's probably like, 30 feet tall, and it's a flat area. You can just chill out and eat your lunch. I've hung out there before. It's pretty cool. You can see the Great Gulf, and then you can see down into like Huntington Ravine and stuff. It's a cool area.
Yeah, it is.
So that was named in 2011. So there is a section of Mount Washington that uses this name.
Gotcha. Okay.
So just so that the listeners know, so Mount Washington was named in 1784 originally, but just on the Geographic names database, there are a lot of past names. So there's actually three spellings of Agiocochook. There's a name reference. There's a couple of different spellings of Kodak Wajo, which is another native name. It was called Sugarloaf. It was called Shooter's Hill. It was called Twinkling Mountain of Agiocochook. It was called 3 or 4 different versions of Wambeket Methna and then Wambek. Not Wambek that we know with the B-E-K, but Wambek with the B-I-K. And then it was also referenced as the White Hill. So over history, it's had a number of different names, and we're going to talk a little bit about map making with our guest this week. And then, one of the things about map making is that people just over time they had different spellings and features just evolve. So that's why you'll have 3 different versions of Wambek that are spelled 3 different ways.
Yeah, this is a very interesting article. It's pretty in depth.
Yeah. So just a reminder on place names, particularly when it comes to Native Americans. So many of the names used by Native Americans may not actually be, the names that we use, and I'm going to use Ammonoosuc as an example in a minute. Many of the names used by Native or labeled as place names that are Native American origin may not be the place names in the way that we typically think of place names. So in our culture, we sort of think of okay, we're going to name a specific place with a specific name, record that name, and then reference that place as that name for all time, forever. Native Americans had a little bit of a different approach where many of the names were applied to specific locations by settlers who learned those names from the natives, but a lot of times what would happen is that the words were descriptive labels. So Ammonoosuc is an example of a word that it means fish place, and it could simply just be that at the time when the settlers were talking to the natives, or they learned about the natives, the natives were referencing a particular place that was good for fishing, and then the settlers took that word and said okay, we're going to use Ammonoosuc to apply it to a specific river, whereas the native might have just said there could be 10 Ammonoosucs in their world where it's just a good fishing place.
Yeah.
And Coos is another example. That's a word that means pines. Mm-hmm. So it could mean any stretch of woods with pines on it. And then Anderstrogen is another one that is called fish curing place. So that's where they would sort of lay their fish out to dry. So you could have many different Androscoggins in the Native Americans world, but essentially the settlers learned those words and then applied them to one specific place.
Yeah.
So I suspect with Agiocochook that when Darby Field first went in 1642, I think it was, he referenced it and said that the mountain was named as Agiocochook, but it's very likely that what this really meant is that all of those high summits that we now know as the Presidential Range were very likely referenced as a spiritual place, and that it may not necessarily have been that one specific peak. Because I don't know if they didn't go up there, they wouldn't know. Maybe I don't even know if you can differentiate that there's one particular summit depending on where they looked.
True.
So it's interesting, but I think the other issue with this is that there's a political aspect to this as well. I think that there's probably difficulty in the amount of money that it would cost to rename and redo all of the signage and everything like that. The decision was made to deny it. They did recommend that you could use it in alongside with Mount Washington as a way to honor it. And I feel like a ton of hikers, it's very common for hikers to reference it as a Guyot. Not me, obviously, because I can't even say it, but you always do.
Yeah, I put some time into that one episode there. It was very interesting. I want to go back to the back and forth here. She cites historical harms done to the tribes and whatnot, slave owners, that type of thing. And then the rebuttal came back by 8 commissioners for the state. The executive director of Fish and Game drafted letters of opposition for changing the name of Mount Washington and the Baker River. They included multiple departments in the state, including environmental services, et cetera, health and human services. But this is interesting. Some claimed the name change would increase danger in search and rescue missions and loss of tourism revenue, which that's sort of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if they start just step back for a second. So just the history on the name, first of all. So 1784, there was a expedition so Darby Field in the 1600s was the first one to climb it, but in 1784, Manessa Cutler and Jeremy Belknap, we've talked about them, they basically came in from Pinkham Notch. Cutler climbed it, they summited in one day, and then apparently they named it Mount Washington at that point. The early writings of that is 1784 expedition. They just called it like the White Hill or Sugarloaf. Mm-hmm. But in 1792, they did write. They wrote a summary of their trip, and they named it Mount Washington at that point. So Mount Washington was named in officially 1792. It started appearing in maps and books. In 1820, there was another party that was guided by Ethan Crawford to the range, where they named the remaining summits. So the members of that party, Dino Brackett, John Weeks, which, you've got the Weeks Mountains up in the northern White Mountains, and then you've got Philip Carrigain. So he obviously Mount Carrigain, I think, is named after him. They named Monroe, Jefferson, Adams, Madison, and Franklin as they went across. So they did sounds like they did a presidential traverse type of deal, and they named all the summits. So that's how the presidential range came to be. Mm-hmm. Now, going back to the sort of the points that New Hampshire had made, there is currently the Board of Geographic Names is responsible for fielding requests like you see that we received in New Hampshire around like Mount Washington being changed.
Wait a minute. Let's stop for a second. So this is the federal board that the Biden administration set up, correct?
This is a separate board called the Reconciliation and Place Names Committee, which was set up based on like presidential. He basically said, we're going to create this new board that is going to be an advisory to the Geographic, the Board of Geographic Names. And essentially what this board has done is set up a bunch of different criteria around derogatory place names. Right now, what they're doing is they're identifying specific words that are derogatory. So squaw is a good example. There's other like wild, anything that says wild in a name, like there's a wild Chinaman Gulch.
I remember talking about this.
We talked about it before. So essentially they have a whole list of words that are offensive, and some of them are racist words and things like that, and they make sense. So they're working on going to the Board of Geographic Names and saying like, okay, we've identified these derogatory words that cannot be associated with place names, and then the Board of Geographic Names is essentially like, okay, we'll defer to you on those. You can go ahead and change a bunch of them. Now, what's interesting is that they have a working document which is sort of the principles of derogatory place names, and in it they've got 3 criterias. One is the clearly like derogatory place names, which are the bad words that are like demeaning. But the additional criteria is where it gets into areas where I think the justification around changing Mount Washington comes into play, which is the idea that place names that are named after historical figures that can be tracked back to historical injustices to sort of underrepresented people. Though they haven't decided on this, but they've essentially said like, oh, all right, we are all settled on derogatory names, but we want to leave open the possibility that there's going to be names that we want to change based on them being named after historical figures that did bad things. So that's where I think the can of worms gets opened up, because
it's political.
One of the exactly. It gets political and it gets difficult. And the other thing is that if you read the public comments that are on this this committee, there's many public comments from organizations where it's very apparent, like, if Mount Washington got changed, like, that's not the end. It's moving on to Jefferson, it's moving on to other historical figures, and I don't think that there would be an end to this. And I question how healthy it would be to sort of go through this process of dialing back names based on, in some cases factual historical injustices, but in other cases perceived historical injustices. So it just seems like a dicey proposition to go down that road, because you could go on forever with these names.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a can of worms. It's no place for government, not federal government anyway.
Well, I mean, they oversee. I mean, they oversee the place names. So it's 100% their responsibility to change and approve name changes and labels and things like that. So ultimately, it will come to the federal government.
Properties.
But yeah. So it's interesting, but I'll link in the show notes like all the documents for the reconciliation and place names. You can take a look at like what words they're using as derogatory. You can take a look at like the public comments. Some of the public comments are pretty funny. They're like, we'll be happy to identify all of the bad places that need to be changed, and it's sort of ominous because you're like, oh wow, I wonder what they have in mind.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, the biggest problem is the whole political aspect of it. You get some other administration with a different ideology, it'll be a whole different thing. That's what I mean. It's like when you're talking about the federal government, it's a political beast, and it can't make rational judgments on this stuff.
Stomp, we're too old to start learning new names and stuff like that. It's going to be hard.
Yes, especially native tongues.
Yes, exactly. All right, Stomp. So next article we have here, Chinese marathon runner 52 is disqualified for chain smoking throughout an entire race, which he finished in 3 hours and 33 minutes. That's a pretty badass time for a 52-year-old chain smoking runner.
Yeah, he smoked them.
Dun-dun-dun.
This is funny though, right? 52.
Yeah.
He was just chain smoking the whole race.
Yeah, his name's Uncle Chen.
Unbelievable. Why'd they disqualify him though? Because he was pissing off everybody?
Oh my! If I was running a marathon and some dude was smoking cigarettes near me, I would want to punch him in the throat. But
you see some of the video.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's honestly they just didn't even let him run. They should have tossed him out.
What a funny story.
His name's Uncle Chen. He's nicknamed the Smoking Brother.
But he looks like he's in damn good shape. That's what's funny
he looks
about
like
it.
He's in good shape.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Interesting story.
He's got he's got really good calves there.
Yeah, he's got the VMOs and his quads going.
Yeah.
Wow. Funny story.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be stuck behind him though.
Yeah.
We all know that hiking a mountain can be hard at times. So here's a corny dad joke to help you get over it. Ba-dum-bum.
Well, I just dropped a dad joke, so do you have any this week?
Yeah, Stomp. Why did the fart miss graduation?
Why?
Because it got expelled.
Oh my goodness, that's
all right.
Wonderful.
Thanks again to Lance and Camilla for giving me my 365 days of dad jokes.
That's excellent stuff.
Yeah, so I think we've got 360 episodes left where I can do dad jokes.
Okay. So, hey, if anybody wants stickers, you can grab Slasher stickers either from us. You just drop us a line on social media and we'll send them out to you. Or you can find them at Ski Fanatics off Exit 28 in Campton, New Hampshire, or in Massachusetts off at 93 Dascombe Road in Andover at Spinner's Pizza Parlor.
Pizza Parlor.
Pizza Parlor. What about this? What about the 5-star reviews? How many do we have now, Mike?
We got a little so I just put a reminder on here to beg for more reviews. So we had a bunch of good reviews in August, and then it got quiet, and then we had a big spike around Christmas because I think I begged for some good reviews around Christmas time. But if you could find it in your heart to give us more 5-star reviews and give us a good shout out on Apple Podcast, that would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does, but it feeds my ego, so I think that works out. If you don't want to give a 5-star review, then don't give a review at all.
Doesn't it make us show up in the search results higher or something like that?
It may. I don't know.
Who knows?
I always check the search results and I type in White Mountains and we don't even show up. Then I type in New Hampshire and we do show up, and then Mount Washington, 4,000 footers, we show up. So
that's funny. Oh boy. Hey, a quick little shout out to our supporters. EMS, we haven't mentioned it in a bit. Your Northeast go-to for outdoor gear, guidance, education, and more since 1967. Check them out at EMS.com. And of course, Reckless. A special thanks to at Reckless Brewing, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4,000 footers, and less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. I was hoping to get over there this weekend after some sled guiding, but things just got a little behind, shall we say.
Yeah. You were angling when we were on Owl's Head, and you were doing your stuff. You were thinking about Reckless too.
Yeah, and we ended up hitting Black Mountain Burger.
Yeah. We went there after our hike too.
Yeah, that place is killer. Oh my goodness, those burgers are amazing.
Oh, burgers are good. The buffalo mac and cheese balls.
Yeah.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah, Mrs. Stomp and I went there for a little dinner date while you guys were out on Owl's Head. And I think that was the day those crazy squalls were coming in. And I was getting nervous for you guys. Like, damn, it's coming in around like 2 or 3. Hope they get out.
Yeah.
That's funny.
We got hit with a good amount of snow coming out, and then but then we went to Black Mountain Burger, and then I probably got on the road at like 6:30, and then driving home on 93 was like a death ride.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Frozen. Very dangerous.
Hey, hold my beer. It's time to find out what Mike and Stomp are drinking on this week's Beer Talk.
All right, Stomp, so this is the part of the show where we talk about what beer we're drinking.
I'm enjoying a Tilted Barn brewery. It's called Raise the Barn. Winter Soul. Can you see that? Let me see if that pops in. Winter Soul, which is Winter Sun, I believe. And this is just a little something different away from the IPAs. It's a seasonal porter beer that they brew sparingly, generally only in the colder winter months. A little vanilla bean and cocoa in there, so it's really tasty. It's closer to a stout. It's Yeah, it's really good though. Pretty tasty. What you got happening?
I am finishing up my last zero gravity provisions. So it's got a nice outdoorsy theme. It's got trees and checkerboards and hiking boots and watermelons and paddling and jeeps. So it's nice.
I knew we should have gone left back there.
Stomp, don't worry. I know it's this way. I've got a feeling in my gut.
Are you sure you're not about to have a bowel emergency?
Totally. We got this.
But I just blew out my hip. Fell down that gully with my 40-year-old microspikes.
Suck it up, Stomp. It's 4 p.m. We're at 3,500 feet. We got 9 miles back to the parking lot. Your leg may be broken. We got no cell connection, and we can't feel our fingers. But we're finishing all of my list tonight. By the way, I need some water. I'm empty.
I would if I could see what I'm doing, but my headlamp batteries are dead.
You gotta be kidding me. What a chump. This is the last time I hike with you.
Ha, whatever, mister. Do you know me? I have a podcast.
Whatever.
Let's find out what Mike and Stomp have been hiking.
All right, so this is the part of the show where we talk about recent hikes. You should probably put the shame drop on here because neither one of us have anything to share.
Yeah, it is true. I think I'm tapped out for the winter 48. I'm just guiding on the weekends now, so I've got no time. Right, maybe next Friday I can do something. Yeah.
Oh, I'm off.
Next Friday?
Yeah.
If you don't mind
I'll do whatever you want.
Okay. If you don't mind a late start, like a noonish for something quick.
Yeah, I'm off.
Okay, let's plan on something then.
Oh my God, let's slash a date, Stomp.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, because I'm just like tapped out. I'm doing 7 days a week for different things, and
where do you need to go? Where do you want to go?
I have the smaller ones that I need to do, like Wombeck,
Immediately
Cabot.
no.
Okay, how about Jackson, Monroe? I mean, it would push us into the afternoon hours, but I'm fine with that. Jackson, you need Jackson?
I don't need any of them. I'll just go with you. But immediately no for Wombeck.
All right. Oh, to be honest with you, yeah, that's actually probably not a bad idea. Maybe crank out Jackson.
Okay.
All right, man.
I could do that.
All right. Let's pencil it in.
I've done the Great North with you up in Cabot once, and that's enough for me.
Yeah. 3 times is enough for me.
It's just a long ride. So
yeah, it's true. It's very true.
All right, and then I got nothing. I may be going up to. I was talking. I'm scheming. I'm scheming for the weekend. I got to wait. I got to go upstairs and make sure that Mrs. Mike is in a good mood, and then I'm going to hit her with the old. I might go out on Saturday, but maybe I shouldn't. I feel like I should stick around. And then she'll say like, "No, you can go," and I go, "Okay."
Okay, gotta go back.
Okay, immediately I'm going.
That's epic.
And then sometimes she'll be like, "Yeah, you need to paint," and I'll be like, "Oh, damn it, I can't go hiking."
Yeah.
It's time for Slasher's Notable Hike of the Week. If you want to be considered for the Hike of the Week, simply tag Slasher on your social media post.
All right, Stomp. So this is the part of the show where we do the Notable Listener Hike of the Week, otherwise known as Dave Shits in the Woods is not winning this. So.
I have a funny story about this coming up. So Dave is actually the first one that tagged us. And remember, if you want to tag Slasher on your adventure, you can be considered for Slasher's Hike of the Week. No guarantees you'll be plugged on the show. And the first one that was tagged was Dave Shits. And he...
Well, so by the way, like, let's just talk about this. Like, how many people reached out to us and were completely shook when they realized that Dave's Hits in the Woods is actually his name, and we got it wrong the whole time.
That was hilarious.
Oh, I was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, our minds are in the gutter, Mike. Our minds are in the gutter. Yeah, that was funny. So, Dave tagged us for North Kinsman Notch Peak, which I'm not familiar with, but I can imagine where it is, and Blue Ridge Mountain North Peak. Marley Sue 2 and what Donna Hamilton photographs hiked up Cannon via Kinsman Ridge Trail, which I'm telling you, I did that about 2 weeks ago, and it was so mint. And from their report, I think they experienced the same type of magic, shall we say.
Yeah. So this is my Emily's Hike crew. So hello to Donna and Marley. But they had sent some video over. We have a little group text going on, and they got like the Narnia experience. You know, like that area there,
totally.
like Kinsman's and Cannon is so like that. It's like the puffy snow. Like they didn't get like a lot of views, but like the trail going up was just amazing.
Yeah, the trees are so heavy with snow, and it's a beautiful trail when it's carved out by snowshoes. It really is. Yeah. So nice job. New Hampshire Wild Official tagged us, and they hiked Mount Shelburne to Moriah on Dr. MLK Day.
Well, I think they did Shelburne, Moriah, and then to Moriah.
Mount Shelburne to Moriah, correct?
No.
What trail would that be?
Moriah
Trail.
Well, you take the Shelburne Moriah Trail so you take Rattle River to Shelburne Moriah, and then I think they went over to Moriah. Okay. So there's two. One peak is called Shelburne-Moriah.
Yeah.
And then the other is called Moriah.
I'm pretty certain that's what it said on their post, though. So I'm just going verbatim what they said. I'm 90% positive that's what they wrote. What you're reading right there. So I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a hiker anymore. I just snowmobile.
Figure out the place names correctly, Stomp. Okay. Moving on.
We could pull it up and confirm. It's on Instagram.
I mean, I'm going to give her like the hiker of the week anyway, because they like did some awesome pictures. So, and plus, not to mention, they always do good stuff. So we need to give them some love anyway.
Okay. Brady Girl 1 did Willie via Field. Gingerbeard Keen did the Wildcats and the Carters, another epic hike. I missed that area. And then we're back to our recent guest, Liz Fay, did Blue Job, Little Blue Job, and Hussey Mountain. And then like several days later, this guy named Dave posted the same thing. So I don't know what this is all about.
So they were
a little late to the party for that guy, Dave, but just
very
kidding.
Good. All right. So we're giving it to New Hampshire Wild official. I was going to give it to Marley and Donna, but I forgot about how cool those photos were on Shelburne Mariah Stomp.
Okay, you're gonna make me look this up.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool, very cool.
We're going to go into our segment here. So Kerry was nice enough to join us. So she is the founder and owner of Sherpa Ant, which is a cool retail online store, and they also have retail locations, or they sell in various locations at retail stores. So we were excited to talk to her, learn all about like her background. She's going to talk about through hiking and some others, some other stuff around her hiking background, and then talk about the cool stuff you can buy at her store.
Yeah, and the sponsor for this segment, our favorite, Vaucluse Gear. So does your backpack not provide enough ventilation? Does your back sweat too much when backpacking? As you know, sweat can be extremely uncomfortable on the trails. Plus, sweat is a serious risk factor in both hot and cold climates. As your clothes get wet, your core temperature can dramatically fluctuate. This can result in hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and dehydration. Let's not forget, very uncomfortable. Today's your lucky day because we have good news for you. There's a piece of gear that solves the sweat and ventilation problem, making your backpack more comfortable. Vaucluse Gear's ultralight backpack ventilation frame. The ultralight frame is a backpack accessory that easily installs in your favorite pack, size 15 liters to 45 liters, and creates a ventilating airflow gap between you and your pack. It's also ultralight, weighing around 3 ounces. That's equivalent to a pair of wool socks. Whether hiking in hot or cold temps, the ultralight backpack ventilation frame from Vaucluse Gear is a real game changer regarding airflow and ventilation. Visit VaucluseGear.com to order an ultralight ventilation frame today. Use promo code SLASHER to enjoy a $5 discount, and plus let them know that Mike and Stomp sent you. All right, let's check out this segment.
All right, we are live here. So, Kerry, this is your moment. Do you prefer to go by Kerry or Sherpa Ant?
Either one is fine. We'll say Kerry for now. But I do. A lot of people call me the Ant.
The Ant. Is that your did you get that? Like, we might as well just get this out of the way. Like, is that like the trail name?
No. My trail name is a little more embarrassing than that. I came up with Sherpa Ant on the AT though. So
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, I read that story on your website.
Yeah. My trail name is actually Shrocket.
Shrocket.
Yes.
What is the meaning behind that?
Snot Rocket, but I refuse to go by Snot Rocket, so we shortened it to Shrocket. Sounds a little more dignified.
So, how long into your through hike, like you make your connection with your trail family and all that stuff? At what point? And I liken this to, we're going to get a little crude here, Kerry. So I apologize ahead of time. Just tell me if I'm stepping on the line. But there's a certain point in the relationship when you start dating someone where it becomes like you can pass gas in front of people. But at what point did you were you able to do the snot rockets in front of all the trail family and all that stuff?
Day 2.
Day 2, all right. So you guys bonded very quickly then.
It all goes out the window.
It was cold in March. Georgia is surprisingly cold in March.
Yeah, it is.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're going to talk about Georgia and what's going on down there coming up. But why don't we start off? So we didn't do a proper introduction, Kerry, but we'll let you introduce yourself in a minute. But Stomp, why don't you kick this off? Because once again, you're doing all the heavy lifting on landing our great guests. So can you just kick this off and give some background?
Sure. Kerry, I think started realizing that your work existed out there maybe several years ago, and I want to say it was probably in an actual retail location versus internet. I could be wrong about that, but I think the first time I saw your work was at Mountain Wanderer in Lincoln by the great Steve Smith, and it was probably a few of your not etched, but drawn maps, and then also the trail sign cards that you make. And I fell in love with your work immediately, and it was very unique. And then at some point, I started following you online, and I've been following straight along. As a matter of fact, when my wife, Mrs. Stomp, and I finished our 48, I purchased one of the Carrigain trail sign cards and gave it to her because that's where we finished. So that's framed in our bedroom, and then a second piece, which was really nice. My oldest daughter, Evelyn, gave us as a gift following our wedding was a framed version of your presidential traverse, which is again black and white and just more fine lines and whatnot. So your work has always been sort of part of my family, which is really neat. And I've always been a fan of like the Eastern art or like traditional Chinese grayscale and like J.R. Tolkien's maps in his books, and your work sort of falls in those two categories for me, and I've always been a big fan. So we're really glad that you agreed to come on and chat with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Awesome. Well, Kerry, why don't you just start off? Can you just introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about your hiking background, and then we're going to talk about Sherpa Ant and the retail opportunities or the retail products that you offer and all that fun stuff. But let's talk about the hiking piece first.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. This is great. I'm a New Hampshire native. I've lived in New Hampshire almost all my life. I did leave for school. I went to University of Rhode Island, and then when I met my husband, I moved to Massachusetts for a few short years. But I have a background in art. I have an art degree with a concentration in graphic design. So I've always been passionate about art, and I've been a graphic designer now for about 15 years. So about 8 years ago, I left, or 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I left my corporate job to hike the AT. And then when I came back from that, I decided to start my own business, and that's when Sherpa Ant evolved. And then I'm also a mom, a wife. I have two young daughters who love the outdoors and love climbing and hiking and all things outdoors.
Wow! And with the work that you did in course, so I'm going to guess you went to RISD then, if you were in Rhode Island, right? You're a graphic designer.
No, I went to the University of Rhode Island.
Oh wow! All right. Well,
yeah, I didn't know that I was going to do graphic design until senior year of high school, and in order to get into RISD, you needed to have a strong portfolio by senior year of high school. So.
Huh. Interesting. Well, that's great. And then, so you worked in the corporate world. What happened? I'm always curious about this, like, because I feel like in the AT, I just make this assumption that it's either like right out of college you go, or you retire, or you're close to retirement you go. But so you did a little bit of a corporate gig and then decided to just step away from that and hike the Appalachian Trail. Were you always planning to do that, or did it happen sort of on short notice?
A little bit of both. I had always wanted to hike the AT, and after college, I had my life kind of set up already. I kind of fell into a job that I loved, and everything was working until it wasn't. And so I worked for a company for about 6 years after college, and then I decided, if I'm ever going to do this, it's going to be now. So I was kind of feeling like I needed a change at the job as well. So I was getting into more of a management role, so I wasn't doing as much design and just wasn't quite happy where I was. So decided to make a huge life change and just leave that job and finally go take my hike.
Yeah. Do you ever think, like, 'cause I mean, I sort of I never really, I mean, I've been in sort of the corporate world for the last like 25 years, and I never really had the luxury of saying like, you know what, I've got a little window here. But do you ever think back and say like, wow, if I had stayed in sort of the corporate world, how different my life might be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like so many people don't take that chance, or they don't take the moment. And I'm assuming like, 6 years, you get a little bit of a nest egg built up. So you're like, okay, financially I can do this, but it still had to be nerve wracking. Did you get any pressure from like family or friends or anybody that's like, hey, you're going to step away for like 6 months or a year? Like the job market may be tough. Like this is a huge risk, or were you just pretty sure the whole time?
I was pretty sure the whole time. I think most people were pretty excited. They kind of understood what I was doing and why I was doing it. Obviously, my mom and my grandparents and family were a little nervous, but I think I was living with my mom at the time. I don't even remember anymore, but I'm pretty sure I had moved back home, and it was just kind of time to do something new.
Awesome. And then can you think back, like, was there a lot of online resources for you to plan with, or did you have to do more of just buying books and more reading about the trail?
A little bit of both. I do have some how to hike the AT guidebooks that are all way outdated now. There was it whiteblaze.net?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Is that still around?
Yeah, that's still around.
Yeah, that was a huge resource. And yeah, just kind of figured out what kind of gear to take, where to do mail drops. Not that I did many, but just to have ideas of where I might stop. I did have a small group of friends that we did the 100-mile wilderness the fall before the hike. So kind of tested out some gear, learned what not to do. That was actually my first backpacking experience. So I knew I was doing the AT and the 100-mile wilderness in, I think, July before the trail was my first backpacking.
And did you, were you pretty dialed in with your gear, or did you have to switch it up quite a bit after you got on trail?
I was pretty good. I remember my shoes. I started with a pair of trail runners that did not work. And I switched out at the first, I think it was called Mountain Crossing.
Mountain Crossing, yep.
Yeah. At that first gear shop, I switched them out, and those shoes lasted me to Maine.
Wow.
So,
they were just like regular hiking shoes?
Yes. I can't believe I forget the name now because I love them. So then on the PCT, I bought the same pair because I was like, those work. And I had 2 pairs on the PCT, but I still have my second pair that I'm wearing now, and that was 6 years ago.
Did you so for we get some listeners that are doing the Appalachian Trail, and I think most of them are starting to get on trail between March and April, so it's coming up. What's your thoughts, or like what is your view on like that initial period when you get to Georgia and you start hiking north? Is that were you able to find your friends pretty quickly and settle in, or was it more of a process to get into a routine day after day for the thru hike?
Yeah, I guess I started on a great day because day one we had a great crowd around us. Obviously, a lot of them dropped out, but I met 3 people that first day, and the 4 of us stayed with each other till the halfway point. And we had great hiking pace. We had lots of things to talk about, and we kind of had the same hiking style. And the only reason I separated from them at the halfway point was they were going a little faster than I wanted to go.
Yep.
And I had allotted 6 months, and I wanted to make sure I took that time. Okay. And we would have finished in 4 months.
Oh, wow. So you were going really fast the first half then.
Yeah. And then I really slowed down because I knew if I got back, I would probably go right back to that job, and I just would fall back into everything. And that's not the experience I wanted on the trail. So it was really hard to leave them because we were a great group, and The funny part about it is we all ended at Katahdin on the same day. Just randomly.
Oh, so did they have to like step off trail and then come back or something?
Yeah, a couple of them stepped off to visit family or had injuries, and for whatever reason, we all ended up on the same day together.
Wow. And how was there any periods where you had doubts, or you thought like, oh, this isn't, I'm going to step off, or this isn't really what I had hoped it would be, or were you pretty sure the whole time that you were going to just keep going?
I was sure I was going to keep going. There were days when it wasn't fun. The year I hiked was one of the wettest years. I'm sure there's been wet years since, but I think it was 80% of the days were rainy. So, almost all of us had trench foot, and we just woke up, we're wet, walked in the rain, went to bed wet. It just gets old after a while, but it was still a great experience, I guess.
And when you, the other thing I'm curious about is, so when you're down in Georgia and like in the southern part and you start meeting people, do you immediately like start flexing that you're from New Hampshire and that the whites are going to be like nothing, and that do you try to sort of assert your dominance over them by your New Hampshire credibility?
No, I didn't have enough backpacking experience to assert any dominance.
Oh, all right. Well, I figured you gotta throw your resume out there a little bit.
People were asking. They were a little worried. Everybody looks ahead in the guidebook and you see the elevation profile, and they'll look and they'll be like, oh, this doesn't look so bad. And then all of a sudden they jump ahead and they're like, what is New Hampshire about?
Wow. And so clearly the thru hiking like stuck with you, because you ended up doing the Pacific Crest Trail as well.
Yes. And I had not really planned on doing that. After the AT, or a little while after the AT, I met my husband at the climbing gym, and he had just kind of said, oh yeah, the AT, I'm planning on doing that one day too. Then we started dating, and he was like, well, you've already done the AT. And so he casually said, oh, why don't we do the PCT together? And I wasn't really thinking about that, but like 6 months later, we were starting out on the PCT.
Wow. So you're dating him for like, so what is it, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. So had you done any like trips with him before, or was this the first big trip that you guys had done together?
It was the first big trip. I think we were together maybe a year.
A year or so.
Yeah. Yeah, we were together about a year and a half. And, but a year of that is the planning and figuring out how we're going to leave our now jobs that we have, and he owned a house, and what would that look like? But yeah, we planned it, and he proposed on the trail, which he proposed 700 miles in, which I thought was very bold.
No kidding. Anniversaries are going to be tricky.
And he proposed in an area where we didn't get to a road crossing for 4 days.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I was like, well, that would have been.
I'm curious from your perspective, like, so when you go on trail, you go on trail solo on the AT, and you meet your friends and your crew or whatever, and then you're going as a couple on the PCT. Is it completely different? Does everybody just stay away because they're like, well, I don't want to encroach on the couple? Or were you able to sort of find friends, or do you find other couples that are in the same situation?
It was harder to find a group to get in with. Not that people wanted to stay away, but it's a totally different crowd on the PCT. And we found our group, and we're still great friends with them. They came and visited us over the winter, and yeah, it's just different. But once you find them, they stick with you.
Yeah. Do you find like it's more spread out with the PCT, like it's not as crowded at the shelters as it is on the AT?
Yes. There were tent spots that were very crowded, especially in the beginning. But yeah, it's definitely spread out. We didn't stay in many shelters or like common tent spots, but The AT is a lot more crowded.
Yeah.
And the AT is a lot of younger and older generations. So like under 30 and over 60. And the PCT tended to be like 30 and 40-year-olds.
Okay, yeah, because that sort of goes back to my assumption with the ATs. It's like a lot of college kids and a lot of retirees, so that makes sense. Wow. And
I don't know what all the 30-year-olds were doing on the PCT, but
yeah, I don't know. Well, they're all they all cashed out on their tech jobs, and they got money. So just after you did these the first through hike, like did the bug bit you or the ant bit you, and did you go in? You did a lot of hiking around New Hampshire, the White Mountains, 4,000 footers. Any other list that you did?
I don't think any other lists. No. I wasn't a big list person.
Okay.
I'm still not a big list person. I didn't even complete my 4,000 footers until many years after the AT.
Yeah, so you took your time. Do you like to do day hiking, or do you prefer the backpacking trips?
Oh, I love day hiking. Yeah. I love backpacking now, but especially with 2 kids, day hikes are a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. Are the kids getting into the hiking? How old are the kids?
Yeah, 3 and 5. Okay. So they like to ride in the pack. Yeah. And I go on a lot of trail walks during the week, but that means I'm usually carrying both of them, and they're getting kind of heavy.
Yeah, that's at that tough age. You gotta negotiate with the 5-year-old and say, look, kid, you gotta walk now.
Yeah, so luckily they're both pretty small. So when I'm carrying both of them, it's about 75 pounds, but I don't prefer to do that.
Huh. Sound like a candidate for search and rescue, Kerry.
True. She could help.
Come on up.
I'm training.
We'll take you.
I'm all the way down in Dustin, though.
I'm exhausted just thinking about her life. I can't think she can add search and rescue team member to her resume. But, and then you've been outside the U.S. You've been to Patagonia, the Azores, and some other areas. Can you talk a little bit about your international trips?
Yeah. So Patagonia was a trip that I did while I was still in the corporate world, and it was my first solo trip ever. And again, just kind of had a life change and needed to do something, and said, I'm going to take a vacation, and found a tour group that was going to Patagonia, and they were going to do a lot of hiking. So decided I was just going to jump on board and try it out. And it was one of the greatest trips I've ever been on. I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't know anyone. And it was scary, but it was amazing.
Wow. It's definitely on my bucket list, but I'd say it's difficult to break away with my family situation, but in the future I would love to go. So you recommend, like, so this tour group situation, like there was no creepy people or difficult people. It was, you got along with everybody and you generally had a good time. Good.
Yeah, it was a small group. I think there was only like 6 or 8 of us, and a mix of ages, and everybody got along, and it was just really nice. We spent a couple days in the cities, and then did the circuits down in Patagonia. And it was great going with a tour group because they were able to do all the visas and kind of get us on all the buses and other smaller flights that you need to do to get to those areas.
Did you, as you were doing these trips, like I'd imagine you came back from Patagonia with like 1 million photos and things like that. Did you start just pulling together the photos and any drawings and things like that? Did you start getting creative around some of these early trips? Were those anything like any prototypes to what you eventually ended up doing with Sherpa Ant?
Not so much with the Patagonia trip. Patagonia got me sketching again and realizing that I wanted to do something more with my career than work for a corporate job that I was just grinding at. But I still had no idea what that meant. And then when I was on the AT, I kind of thought more about it. Still, everybody says, you'll figure out life while you're on the AT, but I finished the AT more confused. And, but then in the months after the AT, when you're kind of going through that weird period where you don't know what to do with yourself, that's when I started coming up with new ideas. And that's when I created my first product, which was the Color Your Hike trail map of the White Mountains that most people know about.
Right.
Yeah. And did that, so that first project, the color project, that just, did you think that this was a business to start off with, or would you just doing this sort of on the side and seeing what the interest was? How did it develop from sort of a small interest to a real business?
So I remember, and it started kind of at Mountain Wanderer. That's why it was kind of funny when you said you first saw it there.
Yeah.
I remember walking into Steve's shop many, many years ago, and I asked him if he had any large-scale posters of all of the hiking trails in the Whites, not just the maps, that, you'd have to open all of them up, and then you still don't have a complete picture. And he said he didn't have anything like that. So I said, well, if I create one, will you sell it? And he said, oh, yeah, show me what you got. And so pretty much that day I went home and started sketching. And after lots and lots of sketches and rounds, I came out with the first version of that map and showed it to Steve. And he was like, oh, yeah, this is pretty cool. So he said, yeah, I'll stock a few of them and see what happens. And that's when I kind of started thinking, this could be a thing. I have a lot of other ideas. Let's kind of just put them all together. Except for right when I finished the map, that's when we decided to go on our PCT hike. So it kind of put the hold on it right as it was ramping up. But
it probably also gave you a little bit more time to sort of think through and say, like, all right, maybe I have something here. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's a good thing. Let it percolate a little bit. And when you came back from the PCT, what happened? Was everyone like, where were you? We want more maps?
No, my mom was mailing them out.
Oh, she was. All right. Well,
yeah, and it was like one or two every other week because I wasn't promoting it. I mean, I wasn't on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook that much. But the people who did hear about it and wanted to order one, she would mail them out for me. But no, people didn't really know yet. But when I got back, that's when I really started promoting it and showing people what I had and coming out with other designs.
Got it. So for the listeners, I guess the way I would describe this, and yell at me if I'm doing this wrong. So these are sort of grayscale maps that have, the trails on them, and they'll have a particular region, the White Mountains, Monadnock, Belknaps, whatever. And then you can color in your progress in whatever creative way you want. Can you talk a little bit about like what have you seen some people do with these? Yeah,
so you can use any marker, crayon, colored pencil to color the trails in. And basically what I wanted it for was, there were a lot of times when we would go to, say, North Conway, and we knew what we had hiked, but we didn't know what else was around. And we would look at maps, but between me and my husband, I have a terrible memory. We would just kind of hike the same thing every time. And so I wanted a map, or kind of like redlining, but I wanted to be able to see it on the wall and just be like, well, we're going to this area. What can we hike that we haven't done yet? And so that was my original idea for the map. But since then, I've seen people use it to track. They do different colors for different years that they've hiked. They do different colors for different people in the family or different seasons. Some people put glass, like keep the glass on their frame and use like a erase whiteboard marker, mm-hmm. so that they can erase it every year and do it again. So there's a lot of different ways to use it.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then you've obviously, like, this isn't the only products that you sell. Like, you have a bunch of different prints, and you have apparel and greeting cards. But like the maps themselves that you've drawn, Stomp touched on this a little bit before. Like I was a big like sci-fi fantasy reader when I was a kid, and like all those books, like George R. R. Martin and Tolkien, and even like Terry Brooks and all these other, they always had maps of the worlds that they wrote about, and I was always fascinated with those maps. So were you at all into that, or how did you get to sort of learn to draw maps?
Surprisingly, I was not, but I have a lot of map books that have vintage maps in them. So anything from vintage to, more modern map styles. And I am constantly going through those and just looking at how people have made maps through time. I still have not looked too much at the fantasy maps, but the vintage maps are really what captivates me.
Yeah, it's interesting, like those maps where we have a segment we talked about earlier in the show where we talk about like not only the early map makers and their sort of their art and design skills, but they also were responsible for like basically naming all of the features that we all travel on now, the trails and all the rivers and mountains and summits. Like they basically just, it was up to them to make those decisions to do all those naming. So it's just fascinating how you're drawing from them as well, because it's just really it's the biggest piece of history that I think that is left behind is watching how those people made those maps, and how you can sort of see the story on how things evolved in the White Mountains over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a couple hanging on our wall that are very old. My husband's dad is a collector, so he finds us some really cool ones.
Oh, so you can go over there and then get new inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a couple of others. So the product line. So if anybody wants to check out all the products, they can go to sherpaant.com, and then you've got, probably like 5 or 6 different sections here. So you've got greeting cards that you sell. Do you make those all yourself? I know you're not a one-person show, so you have another person, I think, and I'm sure you probably have family and friends that also help out. But do you design most of the greeting cards?
I design everything. Okay. Design, layout, create everything. I have someone who helps me with shipping, and she also helps a lot with, any other random, she does all my, billing and stuff like that I don't like to do.
All the fun business stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, all right. So
but yeah, all the greeting cards I've designed, they're all meant for people who love the outdoors, which it's kind of hard to find greeting cards like that. And they're not sappy, but they're also not like over the top shouting at you.
Yeah, I love your vibe. Do you there's themes across your greeting cards that give sort of similar, feel across all the different cards. Are you pretty much set? Like you've got all your themes? Or are you always thinking about like, okay, I've got to create a new theme of greeting cards?
Like sentiment or new like sport?
Like a new, so you've got them broken down by, say, like outdoor adventure and birthday and love and friendship, etc. Mm-hmm. Like, do you ever say, I'm going to make a new sort of segment of cards, or are you pretty set in these themes?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a new segment right now. But it would kind of fall into a category already. It's more of a congrats, but a targeted congrats. But I'm also always looking for suggestions. So if anybody needs a theme, let me know.
All right, Stomp. I may have to hit you up for a special Stomp birthday card.
That's great. So, Kerry, I'm looking through the, I mentioned it earlier, but I'm looking through the trail sign poster that you had made, and I got to hand it to you. You've captured the character of each of these peaks in each of these pictures. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
It's so cool. How did you do your research for the actual font or style of each of the signs? Was there a resource for that?
A lot of it was from my own photos that I took when I was hiking.
That's great.
And then, like a lot of people like to point out, a lot of the mountains don't have signs. So those I just kind of took a major feature from the summit and just kind of created my own sign using, it's all hand drawn. So the font is all just my handwriting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, for instance, for the listeners, I'm looking at the Mount Liberty, and it's that classic photo as you're about 100 yards from the summit, and the rocks are angling up and to the west towards the sunset, that classic image, and then the sign is right on top of that. It's so classic. Very nice.
Thank you.
Do I see you even have a Gray Jay? Is that on Mount Willie?
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Can't hike that without seeing one.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so true. Great.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great one. Cool. And then
So the question is, do I update it with the LiDAR?
Oh no. You're going to get us canceled, Kerry.
I've had many debates with this.
Why don't you make a separate variation on it?
I know.
That's all right.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then you also sell clothing, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, and then you can get, it's not just Mountain Wanderer, you have a bunch of different retail locations where you sell, is it apparel and then your prints as well?
Yeah, apparel, prints, gifts. I have mugs and tote bags, and I'm now in about 50 stores throughout the U.S.
Okay, yeah, and you're in a bunch in New Hampshire, so you're in a couple of spots in North Conway, so International Mountain Equipment Store, you're in Mountain Wanderer, you're in the AMC lodges as well. And then is there whereabouts in Massachusetts? Is it the 3 places in Massachusetts? You got to get some presence in the North Shore here.
Yeah, I have to update that list as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll update that list within the next day.
Awesome.
But as of, this is an exciting announcement, but as of last week, I am now in REI Bedford.
Oh,
that's great.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yep, they bought pretty much everything.
Really?
Yep, so if you're looking for something and you're in that area, stop on in.
Well, I need to get over there because I haven't been to that store, so that might give me the motivation to just get up there.
There you go.
Awesome.
And so all of the apparel is printed in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And I print the onesies myself, so those are all right here. But printed in New Hampshire. And I try to keep everything as local as possible. My large scale prints are right in Massachusetts, and
the thing I love is, so you got the 4,000 footer hoodie sweatshirt, which is huge.
Yeah, that one's really comfortable.
Yep, and then you've got a bunch of different themes. So you've got Adirondack High Peaks, you've got the Presidential Traverse, and you've got t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, hoodies. So you've got all the big 3 that we need for all your apparel here, and
a mix between cotton and wicking, so that you can bring some hiking and then wear some in town.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good, Stomp. So you should buy me the 4,000 footer White Mountains in blue.
Okay, I'll do that. I need some stickers for my my DJ rig.
I'm going to give you guys a coupon code too.
All right.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, for all your listeners.
Okay. Awesome. And what is that? Do you want to wait, or do you want to do it now?
No, let's just do SLASR 24.
Okay. Yeah, /24 for a discount code.
Super cool. We appreciate that, and I'm sure you'll get some hits. We hope.
No doubt. And then you're in REI, so that's pretty much like now you're in the big leagues here, and then it's only a matter of time before you get into Reading and some other locations. What's next? Do you have any other big plans, or are you just like you're sort of like, it feels like you're at the point where like you're going from like the one or two person operation where you might need to expand. Are you thought about that? Are you scared about that? Like scaling up is like, it can be difficult because you got to deal with other people.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. My goal was always to stay home with my kids while they were not in school. So I've been trying to keep it kind of smaller for the last few years, and my oldest is going to kindergarten next year, so it's kind of time to start ramping it up. And so it's kind of all just working perfectly, perfect timing. But I'm excited about, growing it, but also not growing it giant. I'd like to keep it, a small business, because then I can still make things in the U.S. and keep it as local as possible.
Yeah, it's admirable.
Yeah, and part of your mission too, it's not, you have a pledge to sort of give back, and you've been involved in supporting a number of different organizations. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the mission and values of Sherpa Ant?
Yeah, so, our mission is to, share the outdoor. Okay, so the mission is to help outdoor enthusiasts pursue and share their passions, and also give back to the people and places we love. And so I give back by giving 5% of profits to an environmental cause. The past few years, that has been helping with providing more access to the outdoors, more equitable access to the outdoors.
Got it.
Excellent.
And do you ever do you recruiting new hikers? I'm assuming you get hit up like occasionally, like, hey, I want to get into hiking, and like let's talk to Sherpa Ant. She must know what to tell me to do. Like, do you ever help out, or do you just have any general advice for new hikers or people that want to get into the outdoors?
I get a lot of questions about thru hiking. A lot of people ask about resupply and mail drops and specific gear for thru hiking. I think most people know that I'm not hiking the big mountains right now, and I'm mostly on trail hauling 2 kids, so I don't get many of those questions anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you nervous? Like, I know with me, I made the huge mistake I made with my kids is like, I just did too much too fast, and I burnt like 2 of them out. I still got one that like hikes, but the other 2 are like, no, I'm not going hiking with you, Dad, because you're a maniac. Do you think about that at all? I mean, it sounds like you've got it down pretty well if you're not pushing them too hard, but that's a tricky thing with the kids, is like, how do you keep it fun?
Yeah.
But you also, you want to get out there and hike.
Yeah, so most of our hikes are about a half a mile, and they consist of a lot of ferry houses.
Yep.
So that's how we're doing it right now. They are getting more interested in doing longer hikes, and they can walk a little further now too. So I'm excited about this summer. I'm hoping we can get up and do a couple bigger hikes, maybe a mile or 2.
That's smart.
Yeah, and it's good for you, because like you got to tire these kids out. Like if you don't tire, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, don't put them in front of the TV. Don't give them like the iPad. Like, you got to get these kids out walking. Get them to bed. They're going to drive you crazy otherwise.
Yep. And then if you are up north and you need to get them tired out, and you can't go on a hike, stop at the AMC Lodge, because that playscape, that'll get them every time.
All right. That's a good call. That's a good call. Yeah, just get them moving. That's such an important thing for the kids. Yeah. And then, do you have any plans to do adult-size onesies? Because I'd like to buy one for Spawn.
I'll see what I can do.
Bibs.
Yeah. Well, so you definitely need a bib. So that would be great.
You can also mail me something, and I'll just slap an image on it.
Yes. Yeah. Right. That's great. All right. So essentially then, if from what I've learned here, then like you're the go-to place. Like, so if you're a hiker and you're listening to the show and you want to get like some cool stuff to hang on your wall, or you want a unique sweatshirt, or you want to flex that you just did a presidential, matter of fact, I did a presidential traverse this. I can buy that shirt now.
You can buy a lot of things. Yeah. You can buy a shirt. You can buy a short sleeve shirt, a long sleeve shirt, a hoodie, a mug. print.
I could be Mr. Traverse.
A sticker, a magnet.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And then, the other thing too is you have a logo. So is the Sherpa Ant it's a cool logo. So you designed that, I think, early on. But does the ant actually have a name, or is Sherpa the name of the ant?
I think it's just the ant.
It's just the ant.
No name. And so that ant I drew on the AT. We were at, it's like, the story everyone knows is we were at a, all you can eat breakfast or something. And I just drew an ant and I said, if I ever own a business, this is going to be my logo. And the first few years, it was that photocopy of that one napkin. And then I actually went in and rendered it. And that's the logo.
Were you always recruited to tag all the shelters because you had the best drawing skills?
No, I only drew mountains.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Wow, this is great. So we'll link all of your. So we'll link your, the website, and then we'll put up the retail locations as well. And I think also people should definitely, if you haven't gone to the REI in Bedford, check it out. But I'm going to go up there, I think maybe pretty soon, and see if I can get some stuff as well. But anything else as far as you want to plug, Kerry?
I've got lots of exciting plans for this year. I have 2 new collections that I'm sketching out now that I'm really excited about. They're on the lines of the Prezi Traverse, but 2, different areas, and I'm really excited about them. And I'm going to have new cards soon, and I'm working on a couple of collaborations. So lots in the works right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like there's this crossover between the hiking community and the creative community that more and more, the more I'm around, the more I see it. So it's just great to, this was such a great idea, Stomp. I don't often give you credit, but it was a great idea to reach out to Kerry. This has been great.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you. It was great.
And if you have any news or any updates, let us know, and we'll certainly be willing to plug and share the news to the listeners.
Yeah, I'll let you know when those new designs are out.
Awesome.
And I'll make sure to get you a coupon code, and you can give your listeners 20% off.
Yeah, SLASR24. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Fantastic. And then Kerry, you're gonna get rich soon because I'm gonna have my wife just pick out a couple of things here. She's a shopper. She likes to
love
shop.
it. Love it.
Sure. This is great. So Kerry, we'll let you go. We're going to get into all the calamities and search and rescue disasters that have gone on nationwide over the last week or two. So we'll spare you the pain of listening to this stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Bye.
And we're back, Stomp. So that was pretty cool.
Yes, that's super cool. I love her art. It's just so unique. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm telling you, take a look when you have a chance at your Lord of the Rings J.R.R. Tolkien maps.
It's the same vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so neat. It's very cool. It's just fun to look at.
I put together a bunch of photos from my Yosemite trip, and I got some spaces on my wall, though, down here that I need to add to, so I'm definitely going to go shopping.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think I might, too. I mean, we have a couple nice prints. I would love to get the Pemi Loop print that she has. It would be similar. Mm-hmm. It would match the Presidential Traverse print that my daughter gave Mrs. Stump and I. And
are you brave enough to do the color thing? I would buy one of the coloring things, but I wouldn't be brave enough to actually color it in. I'd have to do the whiteboard thing.
I'm a purist. I don't touch art. I just leave it.
You don't touch it. All right. So even though it's designed for color, you would just leave it be.
I leave it be as a collector's item, a memento. Yeah, for sure. I've been like that forever.
Yeah, I would just ruin it if I tried to do any level of art.
Any level?
Any level. I have one guy that I can draw.
Okay.
It's just like it's the same character I learned in like second grade, but that's the only thing I can draw. He's got like big cheeks.
I have to see this. Maybe it can be our new logo.
Yes, I'll draw him. I'll draw him and post on the show notes.
Slasher Ant.
Yep. Slasher Stomp. All right, so this is the part of the show where we're going to do search and rescue news, but you need to jump into a sponsor here.
Yeah, so I hope some people have tried this. I've been enjoying the Fieldstone kombuchas at Mad River Coffee. They're fantastic. So Fieldstone Kombucha, New England's premium craft kombucha company. If you're in the heart of New England, you need to drink a New England-style kombucha. Softer, less acidic, and truly enjoyable. Our kombucha is naturally effervescent and boasts full-bodied flavor. Fieldstone crafts the best seasonal flavors. When we tell you there's... Hold on a second. Xylo's going nuts. What are you doing?
Want some kombucha?
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I apologize. Let me take that back a line. Fieldstone crafts the best seasonal flavors. When we tell you there's blueberries in our Baby Bandit flavor, it nearly turns your tongue blue. Women owned and operated, we brew in Rhode Island using whole, locally sourced ingredients. Fieldstone Kombucha is the perfect replenishing drink after a day on the slopes or a trek in the woods. It's chock full of probiotics and healthy acids to keep you in top form. Find us at Biederman's in Plymouth, Mad River Coffee House in Campton, the Concord Food Co-op, and more. Check out our website for the full list of New Hampshire and New England-wide locations. Use code SLASHER, SLASR, on our website for 10% off an online order shipped straight to your door. FieldstoneKombucha.com.
Great. And so when you go to Mad River Coffee... is it just like I've never been there, so is it a sit-down place where they have retail where you can buy like a 4-pack or a 6-pack of kombucha?
No, you can buy them individually.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a coffee shop with, bakery goods, egg sandwiches, heavy-duty coffees, several flavors of coffee, and you can sit down and eat or just take it to go. They do music. Cool. It's a great spot. It's really nice. It's Starbucks-style coffee, too. It's very, very... strong.
Okay. All right. Nice. Well, I got to check it out, and I'm going to get myself a kombucha when I get in there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely.
Stomp, what is your biggest fear in life?
My biggest fear, probably,
or the scariest way for you to die.
Probably drowning. I would say drowning.
I would say like getting eaten by an animal, like a alligator or hippopotamus or like a lion or something like that, and then right behind that is like getting stuck or in like a small confined like area or something like that. So this first story is emergency responders work to rescue a hiker stuck between rocks on Bishop Peak. So this is in California.
Another.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to ever be stuck. That would freak me out. So emergency responders were attempting to rescue a hiker who became trapped between 2 rocks on Bishop Peak in San Luis Obispo on Saturday evening. How can I say San Luis Obispo, but I can't say Agiocochook?
Agiocochook.
Yes, I don't know. A call for aid was made to Bishop Peak around 4:15 that afternoon. Fire department chief said a 40-year-old woman was hiking along with her dog when she slipped and fell at the top of the mountain and became wedged between 2 rocks and was unable to get out. Oh my God, that would freak me out. She's a 40-year-old woman. She only spoke Spanish, so initially it was a little bit difficult, but there was a helicopter that was able to airlift a member of the county's urban search and rescue team to the top of the mountain where they were able to translate and help coordinate resources. So they were able to get to her by 5:30. So that's pretty good. Within an hour, they got a helicopter out there. Once she was removed from the rocks, he said the crew would probably walk her back down the mountain since the helicopter would no longer be operational after dark. They said that the woman was not hurt. They said 4 crews were on scene from the fire department to help out there. So it's pretty good. They got an urban search and rescue team, so I bet you they do a lot of like dementia walk-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm just really curious how she was lodged in there and how they got her out and how she couldn't have gotten herself out. I mean, did they have to use tools, pneumatic tools, or? I don't know. It's very strange. I wish they had those details.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they maybe put a rope under her armpits and pulled her up or something, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Wow.
My biggest fear is like getting lodged like that, but like upside down.
Head first between the rocks. Oh, my God.
Oh, I can't even think about it. I can't even. I'm moving on.
Okay.
Biggest nightmare. All right, so this is a story out of Italy. 45-year-old Italian hiker was swept away by an avalanche on Mount Sorrenti in Abruzzo around 4 p.m. I tell you, by the way, speaking of Italy, my daughter was supposed to go to Italy to do studies overseas, and I was all excited that I was going to go climb the mountains in the Dolomites, and she got rejected from the program.
Oh, so your dreams are dashed.
Crushed. Now she's like, I'm going to go to London. I'm like, when am I going to go to London? I want to go to a city. So, not her fault. It's just a lottery. Like, it's a popular place, and like they pick from a lottery, and she didn't get in. So she didn't do anything. So she doesn't listen to the show. But don't say I said she got rejected. We should delete that.
It's a hop, skip, and a jump over to Scotland, the Highlands.
You think? Oh yeah, that's true. So
that could be worth it.
Could be. She's still waiting to hear if she gets to London, so she may not get anything. I don't want to deal with that drama. But anyway, so back to Italy, avalanche. 45-year-old Italian hiker was swept away by an avalanche. Unfortunately, he did not survive this. So rescue call came in from fellow hikers. They immediately sent a helicopter to the scene. There was a doctor on board, and they were able to locate the victim, but unfortunately his condition immediately appeared critical, and the doctor on board who had landed on the spot could do no more than confirm his death. So there's operations as a follow-up underway to recover the body and his fellow mountaineers by ground rescue teams at this point. So the helicopter just sort of did what it could do, but they just said, like, he's dead and we're moving on.
Gotcha. Well, that's a shame.
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere, dude. It really can.
Well,
shocking.
I mean, avalanche territory only.
Yep.
So, this next one's in Colorado Springs. So a hiker suffered frostbite and other injuries after becoming stranded in the backcountry on a dangerous cold morning. There's a photo here of them getting lifted out. They're on a pretty steep cliff here.
Let me check this out. Cheyenne Canyon, right?
Yeah, North Cheyenne Canyon, just before 7 Saturday morning. So they must have been out. It was around 2 degrees. The person was stuck on steep terrain and unable to move after hiking in the cold. So they used drones.
There you go.
To locate the hiker, and they found him on a rocky ledge in the canyon and immediately got to work setting up a rope system.
Yeah.
So it took about 2.5 hours to get him out, and there was some firefighters involved that was suffering cold exposure symptoms. So they were able to be treated on the scene. You know what they needed, Stomp?
What's that?
Was my daughter's boyfriend's Christmas gift of electric hand warmers.
Yeah.
That would have been all set.
Awesome.
And so the hiker was rescued, transported to the hospital, and I guess there's an Arctic front. You know how we get those polar vortexes? Mm-hmm. In Colorado, they get Arctic fronts.
Yeah. What I find interesting about this is that they used fire department versus a volunteer team. I'm not familiar with this area, but I'm assuming there are teams throughout the region. But
yeah, I mean, Colorado Springs, so it's like a city area, I guess. So I mean, it's right near the mountains, but maybe it was accessible enough where they could get the firefighters.
More front country than back country.
Yeah, stepping on the backcountry territory there.
Right.
This is another one. I feel like did we do this? Maybe we didn't. So hikers run out of food and water as iPhones die 11,000 feet up this volcano. So this was a mess. This was, I apologize. I feel like we did this story, but maybe we didn't.
It's the 17th.
Okay, maybe it's different.
Yeah.
2 hikers got lost 11,000 feet up a freezing volcano in Hawaii without food or water.
Sounds new.
Maybe I'm thinking we've heard this story before because this happens all the time in Hawaii. But they were trapped overnight in severe winter storm that closed the peak of Mauna Loa.
Wow, 11,000.
Yeah, so basically they said anything above 10,000 feet you can't go. They were at 11,000 feet. So they called 911 on Sunday saying they were freezing.
You know what they were doing? They were pulling a Pierce Brosnan.
They were pulling a Pierce Brosnan, that's right, Mr. Entitled. So they did a search and rescue operation via helicopter, and they flew to around 11,000 feet on the road. They found them. They landed so a ranger could check on the hikers, but the high elevation and dangerous gusting winds made it too risky for them to fly off the volcano. So the ranger gave the hikers food, water, and a satellite phone and told them to hike on to the nearest shelter and get out on their own. So that's tough. So they land the helicopter. The guy gets out. He's like, here's some stuff, and then I'm going back on the helicopter and see you later.
Wow. I love it. I love it. That's a good incentive to not do that type of thing, right?
But wait, there's more. So they got food, they got water, they got a satellite phone, and they're moving on their way. So just after sunset, the hikers texted the ranger that they had lost the trail near 10,300 feet in the foul weather. So they made it down 700 feet, and they got lost again. They were like, we need another rescue. So the pilot wasn't able to fly the helicopter safely in the dark. So the rescuers had to wait until Monday to fly up there again, and eventually they just took them off the mountain this time. So 2 helicopter rescues in one event.
Incredible. Yeah, search and rescue can be fun.
Yeah, extremely grueling 10.2-mile hike is not for everybody, and by everybody, they definitely mean these 2 hikers. Hikers are urged to be prepared and know their limits. So I guess they were with 2 other companions that they separated, and those people got in trouble too. So all 4 hikers were cited for hiking the volcano without a permit.
Yeah, the old Pierce Brosnan effect. It's spreading. It's a syndrome.
I got to imagine like the search and rescue. I mean, actually, most search and rescue people, like they don't think this way, but I feel like the locals in Hawaii must just roll their eyes when the tourists get in trouble like this.
Exactly. Did you hear about the rescue? Oh boy.
Climbing above 10,000 feet. All right, so this next one, Kentucky college students are rescued after a winter storm leaves them stranded on a mountain peak. There's a good video with this one I'll include in the show notes. So this was a group of college kids from Asbury College, and they hiked up. They were going to do an adventure, and then they got up on the summit, and they were like, nah, this isn't good. And they decided to call for a rescue. Helicopter was able to land on the summit, and then they were able to, I think it was like 4 of them, but it's a pretty cool video of the helicopter landing. And then all the students are like, for some reason, they're hiding in like these bushes. I don't know why, but you don't see them initially. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, look at all these humans that are in the bushes, and they come out.
Unbelievable. So what's dangerous about this place? Do we have good pictures in there or no? You mentioned
the students were camping, and they underestimated the weather, and they were stuck on this dangerous snow-covered mountain.
Wow. Gorge Rock. That sounds pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I guess they just felt like because it was like an icy, rocky face and wind and snow, that they just felt like it would be safer to just take them off the mountain via the helicopter.
All right.
Yeah, so there you go. This next one here, this takes us back to Honolulu. This was rescuers rappelled down a mountain slope about 200 feet after a barking dog had caught the attention of bystanders, and they eventually found the owner trapped a couple hundred feet down a trail. So there was a hiker on Lanipo Trail in Kamuki near Honolulu, saying that there was a random dog running around barking at the edge of a steep slope. So rescue crews were dispatched. They went to go save the dog. And then once they were able to spot the dog, they got a rescue to rappel down about 20 feet to retrieve it. And then from there, one of the pilots that was overseeing it noticed that there was another object about 50 feet down. So after they got the dog to safety, they decided to start looking around to do a safety check for the dog's owner, because they were able to track the owner based on the dog's collar. And when the owner didn't answer, so then they checked the parking lot. They found the owner's vehicle, and then they went back to that spot and found a 35-year-old woman underneath thick foliage about 100 feet below where the bag was found. Yeah. So I guess she was injured. They provided basic life support before taking her into a rescue stretcher and airlifting her to safety. So that's pretty fortunate.
Yeah. So let's this is an interesting one to cover.
It's like there's a detective work going on at the same time.
Yeah, it's wild because it's the dog that triggers the call, and a whole troop of rescuers go out because of a dog. So I'm assuming it means that they're familiar with this scenario, that if there's a dog barking on trail, then it probably means there's somebody else nearby.
No, I think they just care about dogs in Hawaii more than they do in New Hampshire. And they just will rescue a dog.
And I didn't want to say that, but that's the other option for sure. Sending out a gigantic crew to get a dog is unusual at best.
Yeah, I would say you send a crew out to get a dog over a human a lot of times. And I think a lot of my listeners would agree. But I don't know. I don't know what their policy is if they were hey, maybe there's a hiker attached to the dog.
Yeah, look at that. They found her 100 feet below, underneath thick foliage. Interesting.
Yeah, she must have been injured or something, because if I heard all that commotion with a helicopter and my dog bar, I'd be like, hey, what about me?
Yeah. Wow, that's a nice story.
Yeah, so here's a not nice story that comes local here in Mount Monadnock. 3 hikers rescued from frigid conditions. So this happened on Friday night. So 3 lost hikers were rescued Friday night from frigid conditions on Mount Monadnock. I love Mount Monadnock on a Friday night hike, not in the winter.
Okay, pretty gnarly.
The hikers were described by Fish and Game as unprepared for the impending darkness and cold weather. Wind chill dropped on the mountain Friday evening to minus 10 degrees.
Wow.
Monadnock Park staff had to call Fish and Game, and the rescuers called the hikers to help find the trail and get below tree line. I guess they had no lights with them, so they couldn't really go anywhere. So eventually they were able to make contact and give them gear to help with the ascent. It was a 50-year-old person from Quincy, a 37-year-old person from Thailand, and then a 63-year-old woman from Quincy, Mass. The woman was in poor condition and had to be carried about 1.5 miles to the trailhead and taken via ambulance to the hospital. So,
okay,
I don't know what they were thinking, but they weren't prepared to be out there at night on Mount Monadnock.
Yeah, the picture here looks like they set up a bivvy, one of those expandable shelters to keep them warm while they were getting ready to carry them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, one of those awesome. Bothy bags or whatever they're called.
Looks like that's right, bothy. Looks like a bothy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's you have to make the decision. What you want to carry, you carry one of those bothy bags. You can carry a field bivvy, or you can carry one of those cheap solo bivvies that you can get at REI.
Yeah.
When I did Owl's Head, I had my 20-degree bag, I had my sleeping pad, and then I had that cheap bivvy, which if I had to lay down, I wouldn't be super comfortable, but I'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, and then last but not least, our friend Gingerbeard Keen had sent this over to us. So there's a group of skiers and snowboarders, 21 skiers and snowboarders rescued from Killington's backcountry Saturday. So 6 of the missing kids were juveniles. So those juveniles up to no good. But 24 people rescued this weekend after they got lost while navigating the backcountry at Killington. are you really a skier or a snowboarder if you don't go out of bounds every once in a while, Stomp?
True.
Right? I mean,
21.
Yeah, give them a break. 21. So I read somewhere else they said that like there was some ski instructors that were actually involved in this, and essentially like I think somebody was going out of bounds. Somebody said, "Oh, let's look. I'll follow them," and then a whole group of them ended up finding each other. So they all stuck together, which was the right thing to do. And eventually they were notified of like 7 to 9 lost ski or snowboarders in the backcountry. This is a Saturday afternoon. Yeah. So Killington officers spoke with Vermont State Police Search and Rescue, and they discovered there was actually 21 lost individuals at the time. So 12 members from Killington Search and Rescue Team went into the woods where they spent the next several hours hiking, snowshoeing, and skiing over 5 miles in frigid temperatures. So once the rescued individuals were found and brought out of the woods, they warmed up in Killington's fire department's heavy rescue truck along with team members' personal cars while waiting for their rides home. So a call came in from 2 more lost skiers just as the team was ready to clear the scene. So kudos to them, because I guess they cleared everyone up by 7:30 at night. But yeah, everyone took a wrong turn at Killington. I don't go out of bounds anymore, Stomp. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore.
I don't ski anymore. I miss it. I got to get out there again. But it's supposed to be a good season so far.
Jimmy Chaga's been getting out to Waterville right down the street.
Yeah, he sure has been. Him and Little Chaga. But
Little Chaga.
Hey, listen, I know there's 4 snowmobile things here, but you have to read the one about the cable. You have to read this one.
Oh,
this is so interesting. I think I might change my way to go, like drowning. I'm going to change it to this. This is pretty wild.
Yeah. So Saturday, January 20th, at 8:40 p.m. Is it Canaan? How do you pronounce it?
I believe it's Canaan.
Canaan, Canaan. Canaan Police Department, fishing game, bunch of people. Operator identified as a 22-year-old from Canaan, New Hampshire, had been riding a snowmobile with a friend. They had ridden to Clark Pond, where we're trying to access Gore Road via private property. Unfortunately, the rider was unaware that there was a cable across the road he was riding on. Oh. He ran into the cable at speed, which caused him to be thrown from the snowmobile.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's his friend was able to access like the road and make a 911 call, but serious injuries and charges are pending for the rider. So not only did he get absolutely wrecked by a cable, but he also is going to get charged for illegally riding off trail without written consent of the landowner.
Wow.
So riders got to stay on trail. So this is brutal. The landowner puts a cable on over this. Kid runs into it. Now the kid's going to get charged. So the landowner has no
liability?
No liability here.
True. Yeah, it's not like a trap or something, like an explosive to go off to kill you if you go into the property. It's just a common gate.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, when we were kids, we used to ride dirt bikes a lot. So I grew up in North Reading, Mass, but back then it was much more rural, and you had like these woods and you could ride dirt bikes, and there was always like these urban legends about like, oh, so-and-so found like a cable struck across, because people get mad because they make a lot of noise, and it was always like, we'd always talk about like, oh, you always got to look out for, residents that put cables across the trails because they're gonna injure you. And it would always be like somebody knew somebody who knew somebody that got like their head chopped off by a cable.
Right. So those are the basic rules. That's why they stress always stay on trail.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah, and speed is always, you got to pay attention to your speed. Although I don't think you have to be going that fast to get really injured by a cable if you don't see it.
True. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. They're unforgiving.
Couple of other ones. Snowmobiler needs a rescue. Injured snowmobiler.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
Yeah. There was a fatality, unfortunately. Not a lot of details, but there was a Massachusetts renter that was killed in a crash in Berlin.
Yep.
And this happened on Tuesday. So this week, the driver was on corridor 12 and basically was going straight. They had a passenger behind or on the back of the snowmobile, and she failed to make a right-hand turn, and it appeared that she didn't even attempt to make the turn, so she may not have seen it. Apparently she was, she rented from Gorham, and it's believed that the victim had limited or no previous snowmobiling experience. So, I don't know. Tough one. I think they're dangerous. ATV rentals, snowmobiles, if you don't have experience, like go with a guide, I guess. I don't know, Stomp, you know better than I do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, power vehicles like this, it's always inherently dangerous getting on these things. If you don't have any experience, it's probably best to get a guide for something like that. Yeah. I'm pretty fortunate. These guys that I work with, they really never rent to newbies. You have to have some experience for sure before you do that. So that's a shame.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I've ridden snowmobiles, I've ridden dirt bikes, I've ridden quads for a long time. I don't think I would even go out. I wouldn't want to go out in a snowmobile without a guide, or at least somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yep. Tis the season.
Tis the season, Stomp. It's always sad to hear about fatalities, but it's a risk. Everything about life is a risk at this point. But we learned a lot this show. We had some high moments, some fun moments, some sad moments, but we'll close it out with a goodbye, and then we'll see everybody next week.
Alrighty. See you then.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASRPodcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hell!
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. And I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.